episode number 3 of Atif Explains, and this is where we try and answer some questions from upcoming budding entrepreneurs, business owners, and people who are aspiring to set up a business. What is the biggest advantage a business can have? Now, that's a tricky one. All right, now I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of someone setting up a restaurant or a cafe or a food business, right? So if I ask you, what is that one, if you could have one advantage over all of your competition, right? So let's say I've got you and I've got 10 people setting up a restaurant, and you're gonna get one advantage that nobody else has. What is that advantage gonna be? Now, people would say I could have the best taste. Somebody could say I could have the best team. Somebody could say I could have the best location, the best chef, the cheapest pricing. Nobody can be cheaper than me. Like, they're all valid answers, right? But you know what's going to make the difference? The one thing that's going to make a difference is the size and the growth rate of the market. So if the one advantage that you have in your food business, I think, is a hungry crowd. If I put your restaurant or cafeteria in front of people who are really, really hungry and who want to eat, that's going to be the biggest advantage. It doesn't matter where you're located. It doesn't matter how much you're selling it for. And at some time, if people are hungry, they don't even care about the taste. There has to be a need of your product, and it has to be growing. Have you ever thought, why are so many small, medium, large businesses, enterprises moving to Dubai? Have you ever thought of it? They're moving to the Middle East. Why? Because Middle East keeps increasing in size and the number of people. Look at how many people did you have in the UAE about 5 years ago. Look at today. Look at the growth rate. Has any other country outside the Middle East grown at this rate? No. And this is the exact reason why people keep pumping in money here. Why? Because the growth rate is massive. And that's the advantage you need to be. I'll give you another example, right? If you have, these new communities coming up, you see these new community malls coming up, right? And do you see, before they come up, if they have these malls, these shops, they have their contracts sorted, rented, closed before the community starts. Because these business owners or retail outlet owners, they have an assumption that if we get into this community at the right time, the size of this community is going to grow. Again, same concept. The market size is going to grow. If the market size keeps on increasing, you don't have to work as hard to get more business, right? Otherwise, if the market size is stagnant, your competition is going to increase always. A competition in any industry is going to grow over the next 6 months, 1 year, more. So if the market is stagnant and the competition is increasing, the market share for each of the business is going to struggle. Right? If you're one restaurant owner in a community, eventually you're going to have the second guy open a restaurant, the third guy, the fourth guy, and the fifth guy. If the number of people in that community stays the same, you're going to struggle. Your margins are going to go lower. Yes or no? I hope you get that point. But if the size of the community keeps expanding, the size of the competition is not going to hurt you as much. So when you choose a location, when you choose a locality, everything basically is a market. You open a shawarma, it's a market. People who want shawarma is a segment of a market, right? People who want to have fine dining, it's a segment of a market. People who want to eat Japanese, Korean, seafood, Arabic, everything is a market segment. So you want to be in the business where the demand keeps growing. If the demand is going to be stagnant, you're going to die. I can tell you. If the demand is going to be stagnant, then you got to be the best to survive. But if the demand keeps increasing, even if you're not the best, you're still going to do well. That's the difference. If you're the absolute best, great. Go in a competitive market, go in a red ocean strategy, compete with people, beat them, win. But if you're not the best, which is okay, guys, not everybody is the best. So I'm telling this for new business owners because you're going to learn as you grow. You got to understand that you got to be in a business, in a market, in a location, in a place which is growing all the time. And this is the reason why this city, this country has so much traction. I hope I was able to answer this point. What is more important, margin or volume? It's like asking me what is more important, the engine or the wheels. Both are very, very important, but you know, there are two types of businesses. So there's one business which rely on volumes, huge volumes, and there's the other kind of business which rely on margins, right? Now, if you've got so let's take an example of hypermarts and supermarkets. You know, you go to the Carrefours, the Giants, the Lulus, you get things cheaper than normal supermarkets outside. Yes? Why do you get it cheaper? The reason you get it cheaper is because the volumes they generate is massive, right? They're generating massive volumes, and if they are generating massive volumes, they can compromise on the margins. All right, so if you got massive volumes, you can live on and you can only survive on massive volumes, I think, when you've got commodities. Anything which is not commoditized cannot generate as much volumes. So the second point is you gotta have healthy margins, because if you do not have healthy margins, any small variance in demand is going to kill the business. Because if you're going to be relying on less margins, then you got to ensure that your demand stays up there. If the demand falls below a threshold, you're going to die, because you can't sustain. Because if your margin is anything below 15%, 10%, that means you got to keep selling all the time. So now that depends. If you're selling detergent, I know there's a demand and people are going to get detergent every single week. There's a set demand, right? And if my product quality stays up to the mark, people are going to buy that. So I can rely on low margins, high volume. But if you think your product, the demand is going to go higher and lower, you should absolutely save your margins. You have to have a margin that sustains the business, even if the demand goes lower. So you got to be careful when you drop prices. This is why we see this all the time. New businesses come up in the industry, they drop their prices, they go in a price war. You know what's the worst thing about a price war? Is nobody wins. Nobody wins a price war. And eventually, you know what happens? People close their businesses and they go home. They get into the market, they drop their prices, and the competitor drops his prices. So the market gets ugly, and after a while they realize they can't sustain. Because it's not a commodity, it's a service. A service is never a commodity, right? So they compete on thin margins, but that doesn't stay sustainable. So when I get a word from a client that somebody's doing it cheaper, I know they're doing it cheaper, and believe it or not, I've seen about 5 of my competitors go out of business in the last 5 years, because they entered the market, they dropped their prices, and I know it's not going to be sustainable. They're going to die. They're going to die, and what I do instead, I differentiate the product more. I add more value to my product so I can sustain my prices. I tell the client I'm going to do this for you, which is an extra, and my clients know that when I give my word, I live up to it. And they're going to get what I say. My suggestion, I mean, there could be different strategies. Everybody has their own experience. They have their own way of thinking. I would never compete on price. I've stopped competing on prices. I compete on value. There's no price problem in the world. People pay for the value they perceive. If your perceived value is good enough, if it's there, people do not have a problem paying for it. If the perceived value is low, people don't want to pay for it. Simple as that. Because if I'm giving you a laptop and somebody else giving you the exact same machine for $20 cheaper, they'll go there, right? There's no difference. So this is how you decide how do you increase you have to add value to increase your margins, and healthy margins are going to keep your business alive and running and you in great mental health. Because if you drop your margins, you're going to go crazy. And eventually you're going to die. Because I'll tell you one thing, there's a rule in business. People are going to leave you for the exact thing they chose you for. All right? So, if I got a client because I gave him a $10 discount, I'm going to write it down for you today. The same client is going to leave you because somebody else gave them a $5 discount for that. So, if price is your only discussion, your business will die. This is the bad news, but this is the reality. So what I choose, how I choose to get my clients, I tend to give them a better version of the service. I increase my level of quality. Because now if somebody's going to compete with me, they got to beat my quality, not beat my price. And that's going to be hard. People can always make it cheaper, but they cannot make it better. A business has three reasons where it can compete. You can either be faster than everybody else, you can either be better than everybody else, or you can be cheaper than everybody else. You decide where are you going to compete. You want to be cheaper, but then be the cheapest. If you want to be the better, be the best. You're going to be fast, be the fastest. And people, see, every segment has a client. There are people who want to buy the cheapest product. There are people who want to buy the best product. But there are people who pay for urgency. Every business will find a customer. But if you're not in the top 5% of that segment, you don't stand a chance. So if you want to compete on price, the whole point is, the question was margin or price, right? If you're going to compete on the price, be the cheapest. Then make sure nobody outprices you. And then you make sure that you have volumes to sustain. If you do not have the volumes to sustain, you should never compete on price. Because the moment you compete on price, there's somebody who's going to enter the market in 2 months and who's going to do it cheaper than you. Can you sustain that war? I cannot sustain that war, and I don't want to sustain that war. And I don't want to fight that war. I'd rather keep my margins, increase my margins, increase the level of quality, increase the value my client gets, and that's where I do my business. Right, guys, I hope today was valuable. That's why we're here for, and do send us your feedback in your comments. Is there any topic you want to know about for us to cover? We'd be happy to cover that if we can. So the next topic, the next episode is gonna talk a bit about marketing. Not in detail, but we're gonna cover some topics, some questions about marketing, and see you around in episode 4.